Welcome to another meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. First meeting for the new year. Thank you all for coming. Moving right into the public comment section, the board takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item to be placed on future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Do we have any public comment at the moment? Anybody is welcome to speak. That being what it is, we'll move to the consent agenda. Item number 1 is consideration of approving the December 18th minute meetings. Have we all had a chance to look at those? I know I did.
Chairman, I move we accept the minutes.
I have a motion to accept and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consider the minutes from last month accepted. We'll move into the regular agenda, public hearing and comment. We're going to, I know the things are in numbered order, but we're going to bounce around a little bit and make this thing work out a little bit. The election will be the last thing that we'll do before the end of the meeting. So that one will automatically go to the end. Number 3 will probably be
Ready?
Yeah, let's just move into number 3. Consideration of making a recommendation regarding a request to name the Youth Sports Practice Complex, the 29th Street Sport Complex, the Chester Hurlburt Sports Complex.
Yes, we received a request. In terms of naming a facility, the process is whoever oversees that facilities, in this case it's Parks and Recreation, the request goes to the advisory board, and then with a recommendation that then it goes to city council to officially name a facility. So we did receive a request in November from Mr. Daniel Cardenas to name the complex that we're designing now, which we refer to as the 29th Street Sports Complex or the Youth Sports Practice Complex, as the Chester Hurlburt Sports Complex, or in short, Hurlburt Complex. We do know Mr. Hurlburt. He was a city employee. He was very instrumental in developing the girls' softball complex, and he was also very active on the Recreation Advisory Board. The item in question is if we want to name the entire complex for Mr. Hurlburt or not. We do have a somewhat official process for naming rights. If we want to sell naming rights, we do have to go through, with a few exceptions, we have to go through our advertising firm, which is McLaughlin Advertising, if we want to sell naming rights. If we want to just name something without the sale, we could do that with council's authorization. So that would be the case here. But in my opinion, I would like to hold the actual full complex name for the sale of naming rights, whatever we can get to help for maintenance and operations, and then find something else at the complex that we could name after Mr. Hurlburt, either a field or the batting cages, something with a nice dedicatory plaque or something recognizing his efforts. And we're still in the process of figuring out how much of the complex we can build, but we will at least have one field out there that could be named for him, as well as the batting cages, because we do have a grant for that. So we are asking for a recommendation on this item.
Discussion.
Have we ever named a facility like that without?
Yes, I mean this building is an example of that. The Kenneth McNeese Convention Center. It wasn't; those naming rights weren't sold.
Okay.
Drone Park is another one.
I'm sure we have other examples if we can think about it. Well, the Jaime Padron, right? Jaime Padron Park. Those weren't sold. We do have naming rights in our department at the Texas Bank Sports Complex. We get $15,000 a year for 10 years for those naming rights. I don't think we'd get that much for this complex, but even if it's 10,000, that would be good.
Money that we generate that way goes where? How is it used?
It
In the
goes
sports
in-
complex, for example.
Right. At the sports complex, it goes into revenue, which helps pay for the operations and maintenance of the facility.
So basically, it's an endowment for 10 years.
An
That
endowment,
allows us, allows us to maintain the facility.
it's not an endowment.
No, but it would be the result if we had an endowment.
Yes, if we
It
had,
just
if we had,
pays- It just pays for the cost of operations.
right.
We
Yes.
would need the same thing here.
Could we sell naming rights through an endowment?
No. Would we? It would be the same process here for this 19th Street Sports Complex, 29th Street Sports Complex, where you would need the money to
Yes.
operate, maintain.
Yes.
And we don't have it.
We don't have anything at this point. Nothing. Yeah, the default name is the 29th Street Sports Complex, and it's not even on 29th Street.
We may have an option, once we get it all fixed up and all the new fields put in and the batting cages put in, we would have an option of going to McLaughlin and saying, throw this around, this is a nice field now, we've put a lot of money into it, with somebody like naming rights.
That is our hope.
Mr. Chairman, what was your recommendation again, and that we do just exactly that?
That we hold off on naming the entire complex for Mr. Hulbert, save that for the sale of naming rights, either endowed or by the year, and name something that we are going to develop out there, a field of the batting cages for Mr. Hulbert. So Chester Hulbert Field, and then put a nice dedication plaque out there.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the recommendation.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the recommendation to not name the entire complex for Mr. Hurlbert, however, find a portion of the new complex that we like, whether it be the field or the batting cages, to name in Mr. Hurlbert's stead.
And I think we would need to bring that back once we know what we're going to be able to afford to build. Bring that back for your recommendation as to what that is that we would name.
At the same time, could we ask that y'all would investigate possibly another park or another area that we could consider for Mr. Hurlbert? I mean, I know he did all of his work out there at 29th. I understand that. He is probably the 29th Street expert, from what I read. But maybe we could come up with a suitable other park or facility that we could put in his name?
It's possible.
I mean, just as an alternative.
With this recommendation, we'll let Mr. Cardenas know what the recommendation is, and see if they want to either go with
Got to go to council either way, right?
right, either go with a field or go with a different park name.
A motion's been placed. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Any comments from out on the floor anywhere? Then let's take it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Being none, consider that one written in. All right, so let's move on to number 4. Consideration of a recommendation regarding an amendment to the city's license agreement with the People Plant Connection for the use of public property at Padrone Park for community garden as it relates to a request to waive the fees charged as per the agreement for the use of the rec center at times not authorized under the agreement.
Kind of a long caption.
Yeah,
Sorry.
kinda.
So, just a little bit of history on this item, and a quick orientation of the location. This is an old aerial photograph, but this is Jaime Perdón Park, the old Rio Vista Park. Jaime Perdón Park, Southside Recreation Center. This is Ben Ficklin Road. South 87 is a little bit farther over here to the west, and the Red Arroyo is right down here. And the Boys and Girls Club is here. Okay, for a long while, we were hoping to find a partner to develop a community garden, a garden where the community could participate in growing plants and vegetables, learn the skill of horticulture, and finally, Susan Stanfield came forward. She's a master gardener. She had been working on a community garden at a different location in the city, and she approached us about the idea of developing a community garden on one of our properties. And we're very, very happy to do that because we've been waiting for this partnership to happen. So we took the idea. I believe this is before this board was formed. Took the idea to the Recreation Advisory Board. They approved it. We took it to council. And so what we have is a license agreement that has a 5-year term. That first 5-year term is about to expire. In the agreement, there is a clause that at their option, they can renew for the second 5 years, the second term, and they've requested that in writing. Staff recommends approval of that. We want to keep that partnership going. And a quick orientation on the ground. This is like the front lawn of the Recreation Center. Both those two pieces are developed in terms of the landscaping with different grasses and plants. They worked on grants to get, is it three? There's 3 rainwater capture tanks. 5? At this location? Okay. 5 tanks on this side of the Recreation Center that collect the water from the Recreation Center, collect it so they can use it for the garden. And they have developed pretty much all of this site as the community garden. They still have this site to work with. As you see here, this area overlaps onto the Recreation Center. And when we negotiated the license agreement, the intent was if the Recreation Center is there and they want to schedule use of the facilities in the Recreation Center, and where that's shaded in, that includes an activity room, a kitchenette, and the restrooms. Working with staff, at times that staff is present, they can use those rooms at no cost because we're there, we're watching the facility. If they want to schedule other times outside of the times that staff is there, then it would be at a cost of $25 an hour because we'd have to bring staff in, we'd have to open up the Recreation Center. So their second request, the first request was to renew the agreement, which we agreed to. Their second request is to amend the agreement such that the city would not charge them the $25 an hour. They'd still have to schedule the use, but the city wouldn't charge them $25 an hour to bring a staff in and open up the Recreation Center. Staff does not recommend this for a couple of reasons. One, we simply don't have the budget for it. Back in 2008, 2009, with budget cuts, pretty much scaled back staffing at the recreation centers. We actually had to close one of the recreation centers, and the staffing at the recreation centers is basically bare minimum. The second reason is at all of our facilities in the city, except the open air facilities like pavilions, we always have a staff member present when somebody's using our facility, and there is a cost to that. So our recommendation is to approve the first request. I think I covered everything. It's to approve the first request, and our recommendation is not to approve the request to waive the fee. So We have representatives from the People Plant Connection here. They're a 501c3 organized by Susan Stanfield. I would like to also mention that she does work with us on the summer camps and other programs. She does some awesome programs. And we also let her use space in the activity room at Santa Fe Crossing behind our offices, free of charge, whenever staff is there. So we've been trying to work with her to provide some free space for her programs, because it is a good partnership. I want to keep the partnership. So we need some advice in your recommendation. And you might want to listen to her opinion too.
Okay.
I have a question about the liability, because you said that that's what we need an employee there because of liability.
Safety and protection of the facility. I mean, it's standard for all facilities.
So is that like under insurance liabilities, or
That's a
is-
good point. I mean, our city risk manager may not even allow us to do that, to be honest.
okay?
And we didn't ask them, but now that you mention it, I think they may have an issue with that.
Good point. Any other discussion? Ms. Stansfield, would you like to say anything? Yes, I would. You are more than welcome, ma'am. Where's my timer? Doggone it.
Really, I know. When I get started, I may not stop. No, we have a great partnership with Carl and the group. The problem is, when we started working on our contract, they were open from 1 to 8, Monday through Friday there. Well, in the process of getting everything approved, they cut their hours to 4, now they're only open 4 to 8? 3 to 8. So, that limits us to when we can do it. We use the volunteers from the Roy K. Robb. We have a horticulture program out there, and we use them. They're only available on Saturdays. So when we have a work day, I make the guys go to the public bathroom over there, and they're okay with that. While I know y'all try to keep it clean and everything, it's a public bathroom. I'm not gonna go over there. Well, I cannot leave them. So that puts me at a disadvantage of not having a restroom. So I have to wait, I have to be dependent on people to come and relieve me if I need to, so they can stay with the guys and I go do that. Well, if those people aren't available, we can't have a work day. So, and as far as the 70, our programs are, we have a gardening seminar that's 3 hours. That's $75, and like at our last one, we only had 3 people there, and that was $75. So it's cuts into we're all total volunteers, no salaries or anything. All of our money, except for a little bit of our office supplies, goes into building our garden. And, you know, we don't have any big donators or anything like that. We depend on our classes, our seminars, and our membership and donations, and I apply for grants all the time as well. So our garden is totally fed by, we have 5 rain tanks against the building, and then we have an outdoor classroom at the children's garden. The one we're doing is a children's garden, and it has an outdoor classroom and a 2,800-gallon tank there. So we're totally not we're not sucking anything out of the city as far as that goes, municipal water. So we just need some relief from that, because that limits they've been very kind to let us do our classes and everything at Santa Fe Crossing, and that works fine. But we have a giant pumpkin contest that we had it in the evening, to go along with that. And we had very little people come because, unfortunately, they don't want to be in that neighborhood at night. So, if we could have had it on Saturday, but we made $40 on that. So if we had to pay 75, you know, we're not getting anywhere. So that is my deal. So we're working good with it. I invite all of you to go see the children's garden. It's really cool. So I don't know. Do you have any questions or anything else?
Yeah, I was wondering, is there any way to have an additional partnership with the Boys and Girls Club since they have a building there? I don't know if that's staffed more
Well-
extensively than our building is.
Only in the evenings, as far as I know. Well, they have events on the weekends and stuff, I think. We do get we have a youth garden club, and we get kids from over there. And of course, it's after school, so we're good with that. But as far as the other stuff, we have, sometimes we need to run our seminars on Saturdays, and especially the work days. That's a big problem, because I've had to, it's hard enough to get the guys scheduled sometimes without having to worry about a relief for me to be there. And if those ladies aren't available, then here we are, we can't have a work day. So everything's delayed. So, you know, if we could just get a waiver from that amount, and to tell you the truth, and I understand why you have to have somebody there, but I would be okay. When we would be there, we would only be in that one part, not the gym or anything else, and the doors could be locked even. You know, it doesn't, the whole facility doesn't have to be open if we can just have that area. And I would be definitely responsible, and I'd have both of them on hard dial, you know, fast dial or whatever it's called, speed dial, if we had a problem. So I don't mind doing that, or, you know, to give me the key, or if they want to get an employee there to unlock it for us, and you know, that kind of thing, and then come back. Like I say, we would leave the doors closed, and because it would just be only the people that would be at our event. No need to go anywhere but the bathrooms and the kitchenette. So we'd be glad to work with them in that respect if they would be interested. I know it's hard, yeah. But we're not just somebody that just uses it every now and then. You know, the whole agreement was to have that as our indoor classroom. With the wind in West Texas, if we have children there and we want to do an event with pom-poms or something like that, it's going to be all over the place if we try to do it in the garden in the wind. So, you know, we pretty much have to have that for our programs, and that's what the agreement was about. So, I don't know. We're kind of at an impasse that we need y'all to fix up.
I think, and we hit on this a little bit when we started, but I think we need to get an input from the city risk office.
And we do have, I'll tell you this too, as far as the risk go, and it may not be totally insurance, but we have probably 3 times the amount of insurance that was required on our agreement. So we have lots of insurance, if it.
Yeah, I just feel better if we had something from the city. I mean, and we do it with legal all the time to get, you know, a legal reading on something that we might or might not want to do. And I think in this particular case, to get a reading from the risk office would be wise. Although I hate to put this off for another month.
Right.
But if Carl can get the reading and work with it from there.
Well, our agreement is up in March, so we have a little bit of
We've
time, but
got
not a whole
time.
lot of time.
I mean, as far as the agreement, renewing it, I think that's easy. The language is very simple and direct. At their request, they can renew it, and they've submitted that request in writing. So, I mean, the agreement can keep going. The consideration of the amendment, we'll just have to revisit.
I don't think any of us have an issue with the agreement. I think that's a Carl's office thing, and that's a good thing. And renewing the agreement, I don't think takes anything from us. But the changing of the wording or in the agreement, yeah, that's a pretty formal thing that we need to get at least a reading from the risk people on. And one of the other things we threw out when we were talking before is, can we employ her?
actually thought of that, but honestly, I did. But I'm trying to remember the reason I.
Maybe as a
Figured out it
contract
couldn't
labor
work.
or something
Some-
like
well, I
that,
mean-
I would be good
Something
with
that would give
You
you
don't
a
have to
thing.
pay me a salary, how about that? Ooh.
See, that's some kind of agreement to that effect. I don't know how that would work, but that's a definite
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why.
thing to look at.
Because we did think of that, but there was some reason why we couldn't go that way.
Don't know, but let's let this slide and pass it off to the risk people and get a reading on the amendment to the contract and see where that goes from there. And obviously, you can keep on going and we'll work it around and see what we can come up with and get it going. Does that, anybody? I don't think, we don't need a motion to accept the rewrite, the renewal of the lease, do we? That's a done
No, I
and
mean,
gone?
no. That, I'm not asking for a recommendation on the renewal. That, in our mind, that's a done deal. It's just, we wanted a recommendation on the amendment to the agreement.
I think we kind
And
of
you want
agree
to
that
table that.
we're gonna table that for a month and talk to some people down at city and see what we can work out in the middle to come to some kind of agreement on how we can make it work best.
Okay, I appreciate that.
You betcha. Thank you
And
very
be sure and go
much.
see the garden, it's really cool.
Absolutely. So we'll slide that one in the next month. Number 5, we're going to do a follow-up on the annual Parks and Recreation Facilities Report, including consideration of parks and recreation products for the city's SIP plan that was just done, and discussion of properties to lease or divest, and any recommending any related matters.
Right. This is a follow-up on our 100-slide presentation from last month. So I've taken out most of those slides. As you recall, we reviewed each Parks and Recreation facility. We talked about the assets, we talked about the condition, what ongoing or upcoming improvements there were, and staff's recommendations, whether we should continue to maintain it, invest into it, or divest. And when I say divest, I'm either saying we lease it out or we permanently divest of it. So it could be either one of those. So of that list, there were 3 properties: Ben Ficklin Park, Hot Water Slough Park, and in that one, it's more of a reduction in size. And my recommendation is not to get rid of it entirely, and Shady Point Circle Park. Ben Ficklin is the one on South Concho River by the dam off South Highway 87. It's this property and this property, but this property right here is this property is leased out under an agricultural lease. So it's really mainly this and this. That property is zoned residential. It's a really cool site, but there's only one field there, and there used to be some other recreation amenities there. I'm not sure. I wish that we had some history on it. And there used to be a diving board there. You could see the remains of what was once a diving board, because the water's really high here because of the dam. So it's a really cool site. I wish we could use it, but we really don't have the money to do anything at this property. And it's not really big enough to do like a community park, and it's not really close to residential area to do a neighborhood park. So we have looked at possibilities of leasing it out, and it was once leased to Southside, Southern Little League. But when we completed the sports complex, then they moved over to the sports complex. So I don't know that we want to permanently get rid of this property because of its location on the river, but I would like to lease it to somebody. An issue with that, going back to the zoning, is because it is residential, that does limit what somebody could do with the property unless it gets rezoned, which is a whole another process. Hot Water Slough Park. It's a huge park, and like I said before, I've kind of been on the fence whether we should keep this or not. But there is a residential area here. There is a new residential area developing here. It really is too big to serve as a neighborhood park, but it would be nice to keep a neighborhood park at this location. It was once more popular because of the power plant that was over here. It discharged the hot water, and the fish really liked that, so it was a nice place to fish, but that's not the case anymore. It really is a public property, a park that's in poor condition. But if we kept some of it, it could be like this, with some access. I don't think we need to keep the whole thing. It's too big. It's being underutilized. We don't have a use for it. But I would like to keep part of it for a neighborhood park. But again,
What's it zoned as, Carl, do you know?
it's residential as well.
It's all residential.
Right. But again, we have no money for this. And then the next one is Shady Point Circle Park. This is the KOA, Knickerbocker Road, Gun Club Road, goes around the hill. This is the park right here. It's a big oval-shaped public space that's surrounded by homes. Most people don't know about it, but it really is in poor condition, and it really only serves that neighborhood. So my thought is to try to get the homeowners association or this neighborhood to adopt it on the long term under a lease agreement for them to improve, maintain.
The houses there, that's all in the Lake
Yeah.
Homeowners Association.
These are all lake properties, all of them. So I guess going back, what do we do with each one? Question is, how do we get the word out that we're interested in doing something with these properties? Any ideas?
How about the representatives, person that should be on the board or is on the board from the lake area?
Yes.
If our that city representative could help us get the word out?
The city could get the word out, but are you talking about the Lake Homeowners Association too, or?
Yeah, well, the homeowners association or the city rep that's over the lake area. I
Well,
don't know who that is.
Administratively, we're over it.
No, I'm talking about city council,
Oh, city council. Oh, okay.
the
Sorry.
council person,
Okay,
like the one that appointed me. If
gotcha.
okay,
Make sure they know about what we're
Yes.
talking about. Okay, we will do that.
May I suggest that we have different problems for these three properties? The easiest one seems to be Shady Point Circle Park, because basically we can meet with the homeowners association, propose to them to take over and do the maintenance with a lease. That's easy. The first one, the on Benficklin, it's almost like you want some kind of commercial guy to come in and say, I will do this on this thing, and we say, yes, you can, and you pay us a fee. So that's more, I mean, I don't know how the city is organized. There must be a real estate branch of it that can basically help and support the process. I would think so. So the last one, it's very different, because you want to carve out a little piece of it for a small park for the area, and the rest being basically left undeveloped. So there are three different problems.
Right, that's true.
As I said, the first one, maybe the city real estate people can help find
Okay.
a tenant. The second one, we basically have to go and do a little master plan and define what that can be, and then we need to find I guess, the amount of money necessary to put in place that park. And finally, the last one, just a question of turn that property over attached to a lease to the local organization, homeowners association or something of that kind.
Okay.
This would be my recommendation.
The city does have a real estate office.
Yes. Yeah. It would probably also work with the Development Services Department on that. And then with the other one, the homeowners association, making sure the city council member knows.
I'm not so sure. I don't know, we'd have to discuss keeping part of the hot water slough and make a separate park out of.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting discussion, depending on who wanted it for what purposes.
Yeah. If we ended up selling it, then that is a whole nother process because it's a public referendum. I mean, I could see additional houses getting developed on it, but you have to go through the referendum. But there's nothing to say that we could come in and develop part of it and the rest could be open space until we figure out long term what to do with it. Okay, we have good direction.
There may be another idea. If really a developer is interested in that area, we could trade the land for the development and payment of the park with a endowment money, so we never ran out of maintenance. That for the city would be, I think, a pretty good outcome.
So, sort of a swap.
Yes.
If there was a developer that wanted to develop the area,
Right.
I mean, that would be
Right.
the hard part to begin with. But if somebody wanted to develop the area and we said, well, sure, we'll work with you on developing the area and getting you the property, but we want you to make a park in this area right here.
Yeah. Okay. That's good direction on those.
It's been done in the past, and usually you get a pretty good park out of that. Again, I think the city real estate people should start to look for a developer who would be interested and would accept to do that. But there's no reason why they would not accept, because usually they get a pretty good occupation ratio for the creation of the park. So it's a good deal for both sides.
Right. Okay.
Maybe somebody from the city real estate office can come and talk to us in a month or so?
Right. Well, I'm thinking that maybe I need to set up an internal meeting with these different
yeah,
groups to talk
for
about
sure.
these.
For sure.
And then we can bring it back.
Yeah.
Making sure the council member knows. I'm sorry. But you're right. I'll get in trouble if I don't do that.
Last question, maybe just to clarify. You want to dispose of these properties not because we want to get money out of it, but because it costs money today to maintain them or to put them back into a good shape.
Right. We're maintaining something that's
Okay.
barely used.
I just wanted to make sure, to be clear, that there was no commercial thinking behind it.
It's a way to reinvest into it. Thank you. So that's on the first part of this. The second part of this is to talk about the capital improvement projects. And you have a packet that shows what is in the draft plan for 2018 to 2023. I've got a correction here. Not all of these projects are funded. Most of them are, but not all of them. So we have a discussion in 3 parts for this. Is to look at the projects that we've submitted for Parks and Recreation to go forward to City Council as part of the 2018-2023 CIP. And then the second part is to review the future projects that we've listed on the handout, starting on page 104 at the bottom through page 105. and all of those projects are unfunded. And then is to review and update our list that we created last year of all of our unfunded projects. Since the board prioritized them, the last time was February of 2016, we have added a few more projects. The Botanic Gardens, and those are listed on page 2. So we need to revisit that process again and reprioritize all those projects.
How much longer is the survey going to be out?
Yes. My understanding is it's online until mid-February. I heard they've got about 850 responses so far. And last I heard, as far as Parks and Recreation projects, the splash pad was number 1, and Unidad Park improvements was number 2. And the budget division, which oversees this process in the CIP, is taking the survey information and any recommendations you have to council on the first and second meetings in February.
In February?
That's what I wrote down.
So they're going to take it to council prior to closing.
Yes, but I think because it's still open at that point. I mean, council's not necessarily going to make a decision at the
Okay.
first meeting. They'll get an update.
Carl, would you send an email when that lands on city council? I would like
Okay.
to be there.
When the CIP discussions are? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we definitely agree that the splash pad in Unidad Park is something that we've talked about for a long time. Moving those up and getting those accomplished would be a great thing, especially the splash pad. I know we've talked about that splash pad since we opened the pool.
Right. And at this point, so Brent won't get nervous. We're not talking about putting the splash pad next to the pool now. We're thinking of another location. All we need is
Dog park, Brent. Yeah, that's true.
any thoughts on the projects going forward, the future projects?
Well, Carl, you know, and I know, and Don and Lori know that a group of people are looking at funding a survey or a master plan for all downtown parks, from, I guess, Central to basically the museum and after. Do we really want to individually look at each project now that could be eventually included in that master plan? And find out when the master plan is put together that what we had put in here is or is not included? I just don't want to get into a long discussion about something that can be taken care of by that master plan. And I understand the master plan considered may come out in April, May. So should we wait for that? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I don't think it'll come out that soon, because it'll take them, at least I'm thinking 4 to 6 months to develop some conceptuals. It's my guess because of all the meetings.
I think you're right. I'm sorry, I misspoke. That was the find a person to do the
Right.
So maybe we can try to prepare something in the event that happens, and make some suggestions or what kind of project we would like to see. like this famous splash pad.
Right.
Does it belong to a new park? Or is it added to existing? I don't know. Definitely, we know the botanical garden will be part of that. So, how do you propose to process this list of new projects, and at the same time consider they could be included into a larger future master plan? That's my question.
Either separate or together.
Right.
Like the thought would be to maybe we should be looking at projects that are on here that are outside of the area that like, you know, areas that are outside of the downtown project that we're talking
Mike,
about. Sorry, Brian.
so projects that are already have legs, so to speak,
So to speak.
not consider them as part of
Right.
this prioritization.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
I'm with Francis. I don't understand how how we can move along with that project at the same time. That could be.
Going back to the reason why we started this is that we had so many projects and we kept talking about new projects and we have no funding for these projects. It was a way for us to focus on what we wanted to spend our time on. And so thinking of that, does that help us decide how we should use this? It's really just a tool for us, a guidance tool for us.
I think we can still keep it too, but I think we also need to work along with the committee of people that are working on the downtown park project.
The Heritage Park?
Well, no, the whole downtown.
Oh, that,
Shore River Park or
Yeah.
whatever.
right, we don't know what to call it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a name that we can call it, but we need to work with that at the same time that we need to work the other park issues, I think is where we're going. And I think as I don't see any reason why, as the board is set up, we can't support or work towards both goals.
Right.
Yeah, the original criteria, if I remember well, were the staff has to be in favor of it. The public has to somehow consider these projects already as part of surveys or
From the master plan,
master plan. And then the city council
the council's priorities.
aspect of, and basically we knew the city council was interested in everything along the river, which put some of that up front. We can reuse the same criteria and look at what's outside, as Don suggested, of the Concho River parks, knowing that at some point of time we have to merge both. But that may not be a bad idea.
Well, we could, those pieces that are part of that big project, we could prioritize the overall project, and then underneath that would be the separate items that could have their different prioritizations.
That could work for me.
Yes.
Okay, and we probably just need to also reconvene that committee, which has changed now. I need 3 or 4 members to serve on that committee to revisit this.
What is the council doing with SIP this year? How far in are they going? Have you heard dates about SIP?
CIP?
Yeah.
Right. That's what, the word I got is they're taking it to both meetings in February. This is the first time they've gone so early
Yeah, that
to
is
city
early.
council. Usually it started off in April, then it moved to March, now it's in February. But as far as what's going to CIP, I need input if y'all are okay with these, the ones of the active projects, the future projects, and then separately we can still do this. It doesn't have to be tied in with CIP. So this is our tool. I'd look at this almost once a week. This helps me stay focused on what we see as a priority.
Do we have the splash pad on one of these?
For a future project.
I mean, we don't have it on one of these?
But it's future, right? Yeah, it is there.
I think we definitely need to move it into the,
Yeah. It's the second to the last one.
we definitely need to move that into the let's make it possible
Yeah,
column.
and that's why we've moved it to the active period, which is 2018 to 2023, but I've got it funded. You see there, 2020, 20,
I gotcha.
21.
I found, yes.
Again, we don't have the money yet, but like you said, we want to keep it an active project. Public's interested in it. We got to find the money in the place.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about that, I would have to say that my number one concern would be the recreation centers improvements themselves. The recreation centers bring in money when they do the basketball, the summer schools, and things like that. And we've got to get the public to realize that those need upkeep, and I want to keep them going and safe for the children to be there.
Good.
So you don't have that up in the high priority stuff, and I was just thinking, even though it's not a big improvement that you can see and say, this is great, we have a new park, a new splash pad, or a new facility, just keeping them running on a good, safe basis.
To maintain them. In terms of the board's list, it's been added. You see on page 2, it's highlighted.
Yeah.
It hasn't been prioritized, and it is listed in it as an active project in the 2018-2023, but again unfunded. And what we can do, if you have any specific recommendations, I mean, what I normally do after the board meeting is do a summary of what the board talked about and recommended, and I give that to city council as part of their Friday packet they get every Friday. So they know. And to be honest, I think that's how we got the money for the parking lot for Station 618.
Finished yet, by the way?
We have the money, we still don't have the parking lot.
Just checking.
I'm sorry I brought that up.
Where's Gloria when you need her?
But there, again, if we had more time, it would be good for us to go through the committee and back to the board, so we would know our prioritizations to make a better recommendation to city council. But they've started so fast that unless we want to meet next week.
I might be free next week.
Okay, I've got 2 volunteers.
Yes,
Don,
you
I
do.
know you're out. I'll make a call for somebody else. I can send an email out asking for a 3rd volunteer.
Thursday or Friday next week would work for me.
This week?
Next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
Friday of next week?
The 1st or 2nd, I think.
Thursday or
I'm
Friday?
sorry, only Friday for me.
Oh, Friday?
Sorry.
Okay. Looks okay for me.
Friday at what time? Anytime?
Friday at any time.
Okay. We could have lunch for you and then meet.
Like last time.
12:15.
Perfect.
If you want to come for lunch, if you don't want to come for lunch, because we're having a staff recreation lunch that day. Otherwise, we'll start at 1 o'clock. The Christina Edward. We're vacant one position. Okay. And then, yeah, I'll get word to council after that. Well, do we want to bring it back to the board here? The committee meets next Friday. Do we want to bring it back to the board? Don
Be
won't
too
be
late?
here.
Would it be
As I
too
say,
late for the
The end of the
city
month would be
council?
too late for the
Right.
board meeting at that
We-
point. Put it out in an email and ask for input.
Yeah, circulate an email with the list and
Okay. As long as we don't talk on the, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we could go that.
And I can visit individually with whoever. Okay.
Any more discussion? I'm really excited about the splash pad and Unidad. I think those are two worthwhile projects, personally.
We've talked about that as a possible location. We have restrooms there, we have parking, it's the trail. There is space.
Put Brent's office over there.
Elections?
Okay, let's move on. The one that we have left is elections. We're going to elect a chair and a vice chair. And before we do that, let me tell you all that I got an email here that I got from Carl in January of 2013. Listed out 5 of us that were selected to be members of the brand-new Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And I'm the last of the 5 original members, I must say, from 2013. So with that in mind, let's open up some elections. And nominations, I'll open for nominations for chair, please.
Well, I would like to nominate Francis for chair.
Francis?
Thank you. Francis?
Second that.
well, I would gladly accept if it goes through.
Oh, Mitzi second? Very cool. Any other nominations? Any further nominations? Then let's take it to a vote. All in favor of Francis becoming the chair? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now let's talk about vice chair. We need a vice chair for the days that Francis isn't able to be here. I'll open nominations up for a vice chair, please.
I would like to propose Mrs. DiCello.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's a second. Do you accept?
Yes.
You always have to ask that, just to be safe.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Very cool. We have a new chair and vice chair for the next meeting. Let's see. Consideration of future agenda items. We know we have one, for sure, that we tabled on the risk office. That one's a definite.
And whether she could be an employee.
Okay.
Honorary employee or something, maybe a non-paid employee. I don't know,
Yeah,
can you do things
something.
like that? Something, yeah. Any other new business agenda items that people would like?
It's not new, but maybe we could review the list of priorities for the projects.
Yes, good
It
point.
would be
From the
useful
meeting as we go.
for the meeting with the city, but we still probably need to revisit that a little bit.
And I did get some other requests. The Spring Creek Marina has asked for two items. One is to consider a speed limit change on the park drive at Spring Creek Park from 20 miles per hour to 15 or 10. And then they've also asked for us to consider allowing the use of golf carts at that park. So, one other request we received, a concern we had was folks are feeding the wildlife, the deer, at properties around the lake, and it's causing a little bit of a nuisance with the feed going out, the deer coming in the traffic and the parking. So we need to talk about that. There is not an ordinance, I checked, there's not an ordinance that prohibits that.
What about the speed limit? Is it city, or is it just a self-imposed limit, or what?
It's a park drive. It's a city park drive,
So what's the,
and it's 20 miles per hour right now.
Yeah, but what's the regulation that's allowed?
So if we say 10, does council have to approve that?
Right, it had to be in an ordinance. We'd have to change by ordinance the speed limit on whatever section of that drive, all of it or some of it, and then change the signs, if we did that.
would we have to go back to the legal department to
Yes,
find out if it's possible or not?
Yes.
So why not to go first to them and tell us, yes?
I've already checked with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
She said that could be achieved through an ordinance.
okay.
Okay.
We just need to look at the pros and cons and
Be a busy agenda next month.
make a recommendation.
Controversial, probably.
Any other agenda items?
Next meeting, February 22nd,
February 22nd?
and Francis?
We have a tough task now to basically thank Mr. Barnhart, Don, for his services. It's been a pleasure to serve with him and you, evidently. But I think Don has a wonderful way to make things happen nicely. I just hope I can continue in that same vein. Anyway, we have a little token of appreciation for you down here.
Andy has a good sense of humor.
Who does? I do?
Yes.
Can I look?
Yes.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
For the people who cannot see it, I think it's a set of pens in wood.
Engraved name. Very nice. Hey, I want to thank all of you guys. It's been any number of boards and park people, and God, y'all do wonderful work. Carl, y'all are just super people. Everything is always planned and sitting in front of us, and all the parks are kept nice, and this is a relatively easy job when you look back at it. And it's mostly easy because you work with great people. So I want to thank you all. It's been 5 fun years for me.
We appreciate working with you. It was a joy to work with you.
On that note,
If we don't have anything else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second? Thank you. So we are adjourned